Hi, I'm Nick. I'm in a new location, and this is 10 Minutes with Nick. And today we're doing 10 Minutes with Nick standing because I sat on an airplane last night and I sat for a long time. Plus, I'm looking swole AF, so we're going to just enjoy that for the moment. But today, we're going to talk about comedy. Now, I'm not going to bore you with me trying to do a stand up routine because, frankly, a stand up routine done by me would be terrible. Because I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm not talented at that level. I can't do the Robin Williams thing where I pace back and forth and I just make it work. Stand-up comedy, there's a lot more to it than that. So, what I'm going to talk about today generally are the principles of comedy and why in today's world we sort of spend a lot of time bemoaning the fact that things can't be funny anymore. Things can't be funny anymore. What are the things we're generally talking about? Generally speaking, we're talking about jokes made based on stereotypes, and usually specifically racial or ethnic stereotypes. This was played to great effect in the Mel Brooks classic Blazing Saddles, in which you might remember, if you've seen the movie, and you should have seen it, it's an excellent film, a white town has to deal with a black sheriff being put on them by the evil governor who's trying to get rid of the town for the sake of prospecting and evil and blah, blah, blah. And eventually the white town comes to embrace the black sheriff. And the point of the whole thing is how stupid stereotypes are. Because the white town is quite literally played for laughs as they steer into these ridiculous stereotypes. And they learn the error of their ways. However, we're more sensitive to the fact that many of those stereotypes were played in a hurtful way in years past. How were they played in a hurtful way? For example, there used to be a thing called minstrel shows. Minstrel shows were essentially caricatures of African Americans. I'm saying African Americans, generally speaking. I don't know that the term at the time was widely used. But caricatures of African Americans essentially putting on a clown show. And essentially the show was meant to show how superior the white man was. It wasn't a good time. That was not a good time in comedy history. But nowadays we're much more sensitive to the misuse of a stereotype in comedy, which is a good thing. But can we take it too far? I don't have the answer to that. I can't answer that in a 10-minute podcast. This is not a thesis. And I am not a PhD scholar of comedy. Mel Brooks probably is, but Mel Brooks also would have gotten his PhD back in the 70s and 80s. So generally speaking, what is a stereotype? Just generally speaking. There's dictionary definition, all that good stuff. Generally speaking, a stereotype is an oversimplified, over-exaggerated characteristic of a group, right? You can't take a stereotype of one person, right? I cannot be the stereotype of Nick Williams's. That doesn't work. But, I got randomly searched at the airport yesterday. I'm Lebanese. That's a trait of people from the Middle East, is that they get randomly searched at airports because, and here comes the stereotype, they're all terrorists. That's the stereotype. So, generally speaking, when you make fun of Middle Eastern people for being terrorists, you're mocking a stereotype. Obviously, not all Middle Eastern people are terrorists. Or at least you shouldn't believe that. If you do believe that, seek counseling. But the stereotype is everybody from the Middle East is a terrorist. That's the stereotype that people find rather hurtful, and for good reason. It's not a particularly, what do we call it? It's not a particularly nuanced stereotype, right? It's sort of topical and it has no positive impact. Except, of course, in the land of comedy. Now, in the land of comedy, we're supposed to be able to lampoon things. And that's where rubber meets the road in this debate of stereotype versus sensitivity, is that at some point, the point of the art of comedy is to laugh at things, is to make fun of things, but to laugh at things, not laugh at people. And that's the distinction that the great comedians could walk masterfully, not the lesser comedians. Back to Mel Brooks, for example. In the movie Blazing Saddles, as much as Mel Brooks threw stereotypes in left, right, and center, he wasn't laughing at African American people. He was laughing at the concept of racism. He was laughing at the concept of how stupid the very idea that one race could be superior to the other was. And that shows up in the fact that his main character, the black sheriff, rides into town, is treated as a pariah, and eventually he wins over the town because, again, the concept of racism was stupid, and it's played for laughs throughout the track. Multiple times over and over again, Mel Brooks upended the idea of the stereotype that was prevalent at the time. He upended that stereotype and defeated it in a lot of ways, and gave us a chance to laugh at something and laugh through it. But as we laughed through it, we also saw his point. The point of the joke wasn't that, oh, look at this, isn't this so funny? This, isn't it so funny, these racial tensions? No, the point of it was, aren't these things so stupid? They're little better than a joke. Mel Brooks was a master at handling that. The problem is, we're not nearly as deft with our touch with that today. And it's because, I think in a lot of ways, Mel Brooks took a lot of risks with Blazing Saddles. Now, granted, he was taking a lot of risks with a much more friendly audience, but he still was taking big swings, and he was dropping the N-word throughout the movie, and he was lampooning people left, right, and center, and he was playing into the stereotype. The black sheriff plays into stereotypes throughout the thing. But again, he took those swings, and they were risks, and they were calculated risks, and he pulled them off because, again, he was not laughing at people. He was laughing at a concept. He was laughing and lampooning a not only old-fashioned but evil concept. And he was sticking it to the wall, and he was drilling it every chance he got. And that's why the joke is funny, because we can all sit there and realize that he's making an excellent point alongside this humor. And that's the best humor there is. That's the best comedy. The best comedy gives us an avenue to laugh on uncomfortable subjects and find a way to work through them. It would have been real hard to do Django Unchained before Blazing Saddles. Right? Just would have been real hard to do that. But Blazing Saddles came in and sort of paved the way for a lot of these hyper-realistic, think 12 Years a Slave, stuff like that. These hyper-realistic depictions, and when I say hyper-realistic, I don't mean fake. What I mean is not romanticized. I don't mean I mean the exact opposite of whatever Disney was doing with Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit. 12 Years a Slave, Django Unchained, these kind of hyper-realized things. These dramas can now be told, and a lot of the horrors can be witnessed by modern audiences to remind us, because a population that does not learn from its history is doomed to repeat it. But that was paved the way for it. But Mel Brooks paved the way for that by first showing us that we can laugh at this stupid concept. And why is it stupid? Not only because it was completely inequitable and moronic, but now we can also step into it and realize the horror it wrought, and probably continues to wreak. But a lot of that stems from starting with, we gotta laugh. We gotta laugh at it. Because once you laugh at it, you're not afraid to grapple with it. If you can laugh at something, you can grapple with it. So for the modern comedians and comediennes of the world, keep working on your stereotype jokes. Remember, they're only funny if you're laughing at a thing, not a person. And in the best case scenario, you just might pave the way for something special. Anyways, I'm out of time. That was a ramble. It's a little bit of a risky ramble, but we'll see if it works. I'm Nick. That was 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.